What exactly happened down there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I talked to him and blah, blah, blah. He asked about you guys and da-da-da-da-da, more questions, blah, blah, blah.
So, hey, it's very nice to meet you. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure, man. I'm glad to...
I'm Tristan. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So this, of course, you've been talking to Tristan. I'm Joe. And I've been primarily the person I know a lot of people, so that's where our guests have been coming from. But Tristan recently has taken up that, and he has got some really interesting people coming on, and you're one of those that I'm excited about talking to. So this is I'm a big fantasy fan, and are you familiar with the Red Rising series?
I am familiar. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
I have heard many things.
Yeah, so
some positive and some negative. But,
it's a personal favorite of ours.
Yeah, Tristan got me on that.
Right.
He got me on that, and I just couldn't put it down. So the first two books were excellent for me, but then for me, sometimes once a series drags out, it tends to.
You're a little loud, Dad. If you could turn yourself just a little bit. Sure. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no,
Father-son gig.
It's good to do it before.
I love that. That's amazing. Okay.
Well, we have our own all of our family has our own art form we've gotten interested in. I was, of course, books. I love writing. He got into podcast and kind of pulled me into this, so I'm trying to use my abilities there to kind of help him out.
That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah. So Tristan's actually written a book or two. Actually, he hasn't have anything published yet, but he's got a lot going. And then my daughter is very artistic. She's musical, and then of course my youngest son is more the entrepreneur of the bunch. He'll be the one that funds everything, all the projects. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah. But I was just kind of letting you kind of know what we do and how we do it. We've had everything on here from preachers to tattoo artists to musicians and authors and
MMA fighters
Really?
Well, I used to train fighters for 30 some odd years. So, I have a lot of people that I know, poker players. I used to play professional poker, and I just really like talking to people and hearing their stories. So we try to highlight you. That's what we're going to be doing here, is highlighting you and your book that you've got out. And I haven't read it, but I've read a bunch of articles. So I'm going to probably get some things mixed up, but I got a bunch of notes here, and I'm ordering the book. I told my wife to order it last night, so if not, it'll be ordered today because I'm definitely going to read it. Hey. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's lovely. I appreciate it. I have I'm in Chicago currently. My wife's grandfather's birthday later this week, and I'm holding his copy right now. But
awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been fun so far.
Yeah. What I've read, the articles that are out there that I've read so far are great commercials for you. So it really made me want to read the book. So I'm excited about that.
I'm deeply grateful to people who have read it, especially the Substack authors who have put reviews down for it, have been just, you're like you said, it's commercials for me, but like the writing talent among the people that I have handed this thing to, and the people who have given it this stamp of approval so far, the talent in the circle I'm running with over on Substack absolutely knocks me down. I'm really, if they like it, I feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah,
that is the best feeling.
Yeah, so I think there's two things. This is just a personal feeling, and the older I get, the more I feel this way. There's two things in life that really predominantly guide us. One of those things is survival, which tends to be when we're younger, we have to be able to put food on the table. We have to make bills and pay bills. But when you get to a point where, whether or not you have that means you get to a point where you're wanting to say, I want to leave a little something behind, a legacy of what, that I was, with that proverbial, I was here, and,
absolutely.
I can't imagine a better way to do that than in a book, because people get to really feel, even if it's a book like yours, people are able still to get a sense of who you were by the way you write, and that's I hope to be able to do it one day myself. I've been dabbling with it, but I'm really proud of Tristan and how far he's come. And so I wanted to start off with maybe, of course, first of all, make sure I don't slaughter your name. I know it's Thomas Clark, and if you'll help me.
Schecter.
Okay, I think I got that right.
Guitar, like the guitars, like the race car driver, apparently.
Okay,
which
that's cool.
Cool.
But
cool.
yeah, like the guitar.
Okay, yeah. So just so that everyone recognizes that, what I wanted to do first is kind of get a feel of who you are and what you're. I've got a lot of sense of your book and your writing just from the articles, but there's not a lot out there. Someone was saying you had, let me think here, you dabble in music, and what was it, the other thing they had there? It was funny how they worded it.
I know you are an educator, and you have interest in music as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a past life when I had a full head of hair,
yeah,
I feel you there.
I used to play in a bunch of bands back in New York City.
Really?
And yeah, we had a lot of fun. I don't remember as much of it as maybe I would like to.
Yeah.
And the long and short of it is that I have actually not had a drink in about 16 years. And so I remember that 16 years significantly better. And
congrats on that.
Thank you. It was, I like to say I retired on the top of my game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always better to burn out than to fade away.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think I didn't either. I just kind of one morning wasn't the worst hangover I ever had. Didn't nearly die or anything like that. Just kind of looked at myself in the mirror and didn't like it. And was like, no, this is kind of gross. I think I'm done here. And that was that. And
it's impressive.
For the past 15 odd years, I've been working with high school students to try to help them, overcome test anxiety for big final exams or standardized tests like the SAT or the ACT to help them get into college. And I like to teach writing. Sometimes I help kids with college essays as they're, after we're done with the SAT part of our work together. Do a lot of AP history class training. And, the thing that I really enjoy is helping them get the whole story kind of up front of what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then kind of point them in the direction, and then they get all the credit at the end of it. They should. It's, about helping them learn how to do the thing the right way. And, at a certain point, that became more important to me than the music. And obviously, I'm a family man now, obviously. It's a long time ago, that part of it. But I needed the creative outlet somewhere. And especially after COVID and after being locked down, it's been very, very nice to get to express, to get to do some of the artistic stuff again on the, on the fiction side of things, on the, just creative writing. And it doesn't require scheduling rehearsals. And, it doesn't require multiple people all coming together to do the thing the right way. I found a community that I really enjoy hanging out with, but mostly, the writing in and of itself is, it's a solo project, but I still get an opportunity to put work in and do something creative, which I think I was missing more than I recognized that I was missing for a while there.
Yeah, you hit something there that kind of made me think. You were talking about managing, scheduling with people and being reliant on it. And sometimes when you're in something that you really love, it gets so big that you become a project manager more than you get to be, get to do what you're wanting to do. And when I used to train fighters and teach, I used to teach Taekwondo to kids and stuff like that. And it was all consuming. That's all I did was others. And I never was able to really, and still to this day, if I go to a gym to just say I want to spar or roll around, through some jiu-jitsu or something, it's immediately, just because I'm small, I'm the big fish, small pond kind of guy. So a lot of people know me, but when I show up, they're all like, and I end up instructing, and I'm like, ugh, yeah, I'm just wanting to.
Everyone comes in and asks for
Yeah, I just want to do me, But so I get that project management role tends to take over sometimes. So I was looking at my notes, and it did say one of the things that caught my eye. It said writing shows a little bit of a history nerd. So yeah, history is was always my favorite subject, and my daughter is in college now, and I tell them all the time, if I could just sit around and learn all day long, that would be awesome. That's one thing I do this for, is every podcast I've learned something about a genre or something that they do that's specific to what they do and that I didn't realize, I think I've seen that a lot in lingo, like every little thing that I've done, because I was a poker player at one time. So I would see, the lingo there would be opposite than car guys and stuff like that. So that's what got me interested in it. But how much of your writing, because it looked to me like this book that you've written is kind of the historical telling of a story. Is that did the history that you've learned how did that affect what you wrote?
All right, so the fact that this is magic-free fantasy for the first case, I always considered the best villains, the scariest villains that I've ever encountered have always been humans.
Absolutely.
When you do it right. For me, my favorite novel of all time is The Godfather by Mario Puzo.
Wow.
I picked it up in 9th grade, and I'm a New Yorker originally, and it was kind of a quintessential 40s, 50s New York. And obviously we're not talking about the morality of the mob here, but it was fascinating to me to see these cold, calculating, tough guys who were willing to get their hands dirty, playing chess with each other, pretty much. Because it's not just, oh, I want to kill this guy. It's, I have to come up with the pretext to kill this guy so that it looks like I have done it as a reasonable person. Otherwise, everybody else is going to turn around and gang up against me. And I always had that kind of sense of, oh, that's a really cool theme of having to be able to save face while also doing this violence against your rivals. And I wrote the original, first 30 pages of a draft of what eventually became the Shieldbreaker when I was 24, 25, 26, something, and it was unreadable garbage.
I know that feeling.
It was just guys running around in the desert, stabbing each other and getting revenge for stuff. And there was nothing else to it. It was just bad. No context. And, like you said, how much history is in this? It's, I would say 90%, because when the pandemic hit, I found myself with more time on my hands because I was no longer driving to and from houses to do my lessons. I would do my lessons on the computer. I have several more hours of my day. I wound up reading a lot of late ancient history, fall of the Roman Empire, and then the couple hundred years afterwards before we get into the medieval period. And this fascinating, little paid attention to period in the 600s and late 500s in the Middle East, of where the Eastern Roman Empire and the Persian Empire are still up and running, and they're still fighting each other like they have been for 300 years. And at some point, the two of them both decide, all right, enough of this, and they declare basically forever war on each other, and they spent 40 years just at war with no breaks. And anybody who's done any history reading of any kind at all knows war is the most expensive thing on the menu. And by the end of that 40 years, both empires are in pieces. And at that exact moment is when Muhammad and company came out of the desert.
Yeah. If I could
I'm sorry?
Listen, if I pop in real quick, in one of your Reddit posts, I believe, you mentioned how kind of say, hey, if you can guess what period or what place this is inspired by, you get bonus points. Was that the point in time in history it was inspired by?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I was close.
7th century Middle East.
See, I was leaning more
the Romans and Persians, yeah.
I was leaning a bit more. I read Tribes, and I was leaning a bit more towards Israel. But so I was close. I threw the dart, hit the same region, not on the mark, you know. But I was somewhere there.
Different, just a different time period.
Yeah, pretty much exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so what I've done here, when I read that, and when I got, when I internalized it, and when I really got into that piece of history, I suddenly realized, oh, this is the context that I was waiting for. We've got this, society is collapsing, and we've got this tiny tribe of pagans who are watching, A, the old world falling apart in front of them, and B, the new power arriving, and they're clearly going to take everybody out and install their new world order. And what lengths do you go to if you are these pagans? How do you try to keep your way of life going? And can you? And what does it, and what, steps do you have to take to do it? And on top of that, the personal drama that I'd already kind of mapped out, where there's this kid who's got the second son. He wasn't supposed to be in charge, but his older brother got executed for rebelling against their father a few years earlier, and this kid is not doing great in the head, and his older brother is haunting him. We think could be PTSD, could just be garden variety madness, if you want to call it that, could be a ghost, and I don't particularly care which of the three it is. And I definitely don't want to give away which of it is my opinion, but I'm just mostly excited for the opportunity to let people argue about it amongst themselves down the road, a couple of books in, when we've got really a little bit more meat to throw to people. But
absolutely.
Imagine your last hope for survival, your last hope for your whole way of life is in the hands of this 19-year-old kid who's out of his mind.
Yeah. That's the part. That's one of the things that really intrigued me as I was reading kind of some of the context of what's going on, was you put a lot of psychological things in there. So in that, and I at any point you can say, spoiler alert, you can say, I don't want to.
Sure, of course.
So just so I'm comfortable with that, I'm fine. But I do have, so when you were writing that part, and I'm kind of glad I haven't read the book yet, because because I don't have any preconceived, ideas of what's going on here. When you were writing that part of that 19-year-old, what was his name? Is it okay to give his name?
That's Kareva. Yeah.
Kareva.
Okay, I couldn't. Yeah.
When it is over with.
Yeah, I have a list. I got a list
we're over.
of all your characters.
Before I am done with this series, there's a lot of characters. Before we're done with this series, that's going to be, that's my protagonist for the series, and he is. I'm sorry. You were.
I was just going to say, coming from, I feel like I've done a little. Tristan, I've dabbled with some writing of my own, but definitely nothing on serious. But coming from my perspective, I'm interested in what you're thinking as you're writing, and how that character, being that there's some psychological issues going on. How did you write that character? Was it? Do you get inside of his mind? You hear his thoughts. And a lot of times you'll hear a character thinking, of course they're thinking with words, or was it something that you just kind of insinuated into that character?
Well, I don't.
So
here's the thing about the series, and my process for writing in general requires me to be in the head of every single one of these characters. You just mentioned, wow, that's a lot of characters. Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's a lot,
That's me when I read a book like that. I'm sorry. When I read a book like yours, I actually have to take notes on the characters so that I can remember who's what. I'm like, okay, now whose sister is that? But
it's honestly a good idea. It's a good idea just for the terms of it. For me, I have to make sure. I wanted two things. I wanted to make sure that all of these people's motivations were believable. There is, if it's straightforward, even if the kid had nothing going on, he's still under a lot of pressure because he's 19 and he's got the actual weight of civilization collapsing on his shoulders. So there's the part of his, the part of his motivation that is simply, I need to do whatever I can to keep my people alive and going. And then there's the part of him that is just so angry and sad and scared, frankly, of, and the part of this where I don't want to fully answer your question. I don't want to spell it out too much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of the way that his madness is going to present itself is going to be through his own head or through his eyes, and the ghost of his brother. I'm not putting that in as a spoiler. That's in the premise. That's on the back cover. I'm not worried about calling that a spoiler.
Yeah.
Some of it is him seeing the ghost, the specter, as I refer to it, of his brother Veritia. And some of it is just going to come through the eyes of other characters watching him do crazy shit and saying, uh-oh, that boy ain't right.
Kind of reminds me of Hamlet slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a big one. Hamlet, Macbeth. Yeah. I want at some point there's going to be bloody Banquo across the table smiling at him. Like that image, ever since the first time I read Macbeth, that image has been like stuck in my mind. Like, yes, that's terrible. That would be the thing that would scare me and make me the most angry. Would be not just a ghost like boo, but a ghost being like, I know what you did, and one day you will get yours. That sort of thing. And the smile on him,
yeah. So, saying that, there went my notes. Saying that, when you go out to, so you're deciding to write this book, and I'm sure that each author does it differently. So you're going into this book going, this is going to be a multi-book. So is there some thoughts of, are you thinking of like book 3? I've got to somehow weave this tale to get me to book 3 so that, it's coherent all the way through, or is it just kind of let it evolve on its own kind of thing?
There's definitely the big strokes of the whole series is written. 3 books is not going to be nearly enough. This is only 200 pages a pop. I figured there's probably going to be more like 15 or 16 by the time it's all over with. And because of the way I write, it means that I've got to keep coming up with new people and new angles, and they will require me to stretch threads and weave threads all over the place. And some of those threads will be harder to weave back in and keep coherent than others, but I'm going to live with that. And obviously there will be things that will either get cut and never see the light of day, or that might become more important. But I don't want this to just be this one kid's story. This is the story to some extent of the whole people. Because of, and if nothing else, because just being in one guy's point of view for more than 5 pages at a time, I get a little bored. I get a little antsy. I want to see, it feels a little bit more like I'd like scene cuts. I want to be able to have, if you guys have ever seen the show Deadwood.
Yeah.
Where I have not.
It's been a while.
It's been a little while. That's my favorite show of all time. David Milch was an absolute master at this, of weaving in secondary and tertiary plot lines that were only a little bit connected to the whole thing, but adding them filled out the world in a way that made made it feel real and made it feel believable and made it feel like he wasn't just talking about these 3 guys trying to plot.
Going into that, one of the quotes I seen from one of the articles said, "Consequences are very real." His writing reads at once like real history and masterdom lyrics, punchy emotions, brutal logic. That's whoever wrote. I can't remember who the writer of this particular. I need to. I'll put him in our notes just to tag him in there. But he really did kind of get me interested in seeing how this story lays out, and then also interested in how you build your characters and the world building that you have. Is that so? The world building, I'm not as this is more Tristan's line. He's a big fan of world building.
Yeah, sure.
And we had, who was it? Luca.
Luca, I can't. Vanzela, something along those lines.
Yeah, from Italy, and he's big into art and world building. So, is the world building kind of like a video game? What is it when you render? So you don't see everything isn't there. Only when you're
definitely there will be some of that for sure.
Yeah.
Fog of War. The first novel is very, very close focus. I think it takes place over 100 square miles total. And there are suggestions of places that are farther up north that we are going to visit in book 2 and beyond. But really it's gearing up for one major battle. And, tracing the two main the two main bodies of combatants to getting to where they're going to meet. And then they go at it.
right.
I get to keep building the world out further as the books keep going. But there's also,
awesome.
The one piece of this that I really enjoyed so far is trying to figure out how to do it in a way that didn't just allow me to just shove a wall of first this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Trying to do it in a way where it's suggested and lets the reader kind of fill in a bunch of the blanks for themselves.
I think
My favorite fantasy author is Andrzej Sapkowski of The Witcher.
Yeah.
That's my guy. And I think of anybody who has done Consequences Are Real really well, that's the guy right there. I mean, going through that series of novels and also the short stories behind it and kind of seeing how the world gets subtly laid in underneath. And it doesn't matter that my version doesn't have supernatural creatures or magic in particular, or the idea of kind of if you do something, it will come back on you eventually. It's going to be either short term or it's going to take, several chapters to come back or wherever else. But, consequences matter. Your choices are going to matter. And the things that you have to live with, even if it's not something coming back to bite you in the ass, you have to sit there and live with what you just did or what you just saw happen. And that's going to build your character and change your character and oftentimes break your character. And then you got to figure out who you are after this happens.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's the thing about writing something based in the middle of a societal collapse, in the middle of the end of the world. Who are you going to be at the end of the world? Who are you going to choose to be? And then, what are the consequences of that going to be?
We are in the most western part of Kentucky.
Right on around Illinois.
Okay.
So we're not far from Nashville. Okay. And, that's something I didn't ask.
That's where my sister is in Nashville.
Yeah. So we're in a spot where we're kind of central to a lot of things like Nashville, St. Louis. We're within about the same distance between everything. Yeah. In Indiana.
Are you near Bowling Green?
Actually, about the same distance to Bowling Green as we are in Nashville, maybe a little less, about an hour and a half. I have a good friend there. Actually, she comes on she's been on my podcast twice. She's a therapist down there. So we do travel
so
there.
Cool.
So, yeah. Small world. So, before we jump right back in, but where are you based out of right now?
Doesn't work, no.
I am still in New York City.
Okay.
I'm currently in Chicago for the week, but
Cool.
I am based in New York City and still running around in a different part of town than when I grew up in, which I think is probably a good thing. But we're trying to figure out where the roots are going to get put down right now, as I have an 18-month-old and we got to figure out where he's going to go to school.
That's
the next big step in terms of, and hopefully the next move is, if we're lucky, the next move is the last one.
Yeah, that having children changes everything. It makes priorities change a lot. So
it does, and I am a stay-at-home dad. My wife works in healthcare, so I have had the distinct privilege of running around after a little, a small hurricane of a human being for the last year, and it changes you. But it's I'm 40 and my back is about 113 years old,
right?
And
I get it.
I would not trade it though.
Yeah,
he's a good boy. I like him.
The dude sitting in the middle of this podcast changed my life. And, when he came into my life, it was like, oh, wait a minute. This whole world isn't what I thought it was supposed to be. This is what it's about, So it was children. I have a bunch of, I'm a movie buff, big, huge movie buff, man. And I quote movies that people that probably don't even remember, all the time. I have these stupid quotes. And every once in a while, I hear one of my kids will say it. And they don't even know what it's from, but they'll say one of those. So that's awesome. my eternal life right there through them.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, and I have a 25-year-old, an 18-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So, yeah.
My goodness. Hands full still.
My 8-year-old, I have this thing where people will say, so what's going on? Or just talking to me. I said, well, I'm just here for the free Wi-Fi. So the other day we were somewhere and somebody asked my youngest son, Enoch, he said, what's going on, little man? He says, man, I am just here for the free Wi-Fi. And I was the proud moment, He didn't even know what he's talking about. So. Yeah. All right. Let's get back here. Another article was talking about mastery of a cinematic quality in your novel. And I want to quote this one. It's you can smell the stink of the blood, feel the vibration of the anticipation, taste the grit and dirt lodged between your teeth. So when I read that, I'm like, I got to get this book. This book sounds freaking awesome. I enjoy reading, and I do a lot of audio books because I drive so much. But when I'm reading an actual book in my hands and I get done with something and I lay it down, I'm like, wow, because just simple words. There was no visual. There was nothing. It put that in my mind strong enough to make me step back. And that's what that reminded me of when I read that about your book. So kind of explain to me, how do you get that sensation in a book? How do you, is it a process, or is it your muse, from out there in the universe, or how's that work?
I am very, very grateful that somebody that like I said, the people who have read and written about this thing so far, who have so many kind things to say about it, I'm obviously deeply, I'm floored, frankly. This was not, and I thought I had written something that was kind of cool. This is a little bit beyond what I had expected, but what I think I wanted to do, and the reason why I like to change perspective from so many different characters all at once, is it allows you to get, like you said, it's not just in their head, but it's kind of in their gut. If they are right there in the line, we're talking about swords and shields here. It's this is 700s style combat, so we're talking shield wall and try to poke the sword through the hole and get lucky, and being able to write that. And I've watched a lot of television, honestly. Like the TV show Vikings that was out for a while on History Channel and then on Amazon has been, really instructive in terms of the way you want to be able to look at it from a really close place. The historical fiction author Bernard Cornwell over in England, the Saxon Tales, which eventually became The Last Kingdom on Netflix, which I have many, many very big problems with, but if he's happy, then I'm happy. His ability to keep one character, focused in a shield wall for, 13 books worth of battles gets a little tiny bit repetitive, but still intense, and you can feel the fear, and you can feel, and you watch him watch his friends get hurt or get killed. And for me, it just felt like I needed to expand it a little bit further. And, I wanted the violence to hurt, is really what it is. I want you to care about more than just one person in this story. Like I said, it's about all these people and about how all of them are affected by this crazy time that they're living in. And especially in a novel as violent as this one winds up being, and in a series as violent as this one's about to be. Not going to give you much in terms of spoilers, but we're not going to get out of wartime anytime soon.
Right.
If I'm going to kill off as many people as I have to kill off to make this look real and feel real, that's one thing. To make it believable is one thing, but to make you actually feel that and care about it, you got to actually be able to feel and care about all these characters too. They've all got to be people. And so for me, I think if they are feeling if it's feeling cinematic, it's because it's bouncing from point of view to point of view, from person to person, and I guess from behind a little bit behind their eyeballs.
I think that's
yeah.
I think that's a core element that kind of differentiates edgy writing from like actually dark writing, because there's a lot of writers out there who are just like, look how many people died, it's all gory and bad. But there's also writers out there who can show you the horrors of these things realistically as almost a warning. Like one of my favorite authors, China Mieville, his first book, or not his first book, but a book he is really well known for, is Perdido Street Station. And that is a miserable book. But it's not just like miserable because he's like, haha, that guy's dead, that guy's dead, that guy's dead. He very well shows you the problems with the society that this world is in, and very well shows you almost as a real world warning of why that's a bad thing and why you need to be concerned about that. And I think that's one thing you can do through very dark writing if you do it right.
If you do it right, and if not, then it's just like, I think, haha, everyone's dead.
Yeah.
There's video game quality to that. I think
anime fanfic.
Sure, and that's fun. Yeah. If that's really what you're into, it's fun sometimes. But if that's the only club in your bag, it's gonna get old kind of quickly.
Yeah, and there's only
so many ways. There's only so many ways to kill somebody.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And if you're talking about Sword and Shield, there's even fewer ways.
Yeah, you've taken all with magic ways to do it.
So many people, right? Like there's so many people. It's a battle. There's going to be thousands of bodies up on top of this mountain by the end of the thing. How to make you care about enough of them that it's not just, and then this guy killed this guy, and then this guy killed this guy, and then this guy killed this guy. And I feel like if you're doing it from like up above, if it's like a bird's eye view sort of situation, or if you're doing it in a way where it's just,
just the action.
If you're just seeing, if it's just action without any if it's just nameless, faceless dudes hacking at each other, and there's no personality to any of them, there's a limit to how effective that's going to be for me. And there's a limit to how much that will hold my own attention.
Let me jump in there. Have you read, Tristan? Let me jump in.
Sorry, go ahead.
Remember that. Let me jump in. So I think the way I feel about what you're saying there is, like you said, this guy killed this guy. This guy. You just have the technical parts of it. I think really the more important part is what it felt like, how it, what they felt like, what they're seeing, and how it's affecting them mentally, and being able to detail what they're seeing so that you can visualize it, and then it affects you in that same way.
That is exactly it. That's the goal. I want
feel
them to have enough personality to themselves that you care what they're thinking and feeling, and then you care when they bite the dust.
Right. There's an emotional connection there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tristan.
Have you you probably have heard of him? Have you read the work of Joe Abercrombie? Because I feel like that's something an author you would really appreciate based on his style.
I have done it out of order. The only one that I've actually read is The only one that I've read so far is The Heroes. And
that's the one you might like the most out of.
That is
Maybe.
that is I imagine already, like, that dude definitely gets it in terms of, I did an interview a couple of months ago, and a fella asked me about, the inherent nihilism of grimdark. And he had suggested that my work falls into that grimdark category, and then asked me about the inherent nihilism. And I pointed to the heroes. If you read the first 10 pages of the heroes, and all those, and you meet and enjoy watching them talk, all these guys that are absolutely positively going to get shredded over the course of the next couple of 100 pages. You tell me that somebody who can make you care about that many people, you tell me that that's nihilist. It's only nihilist if you want it to be. It's only nihilist if the only thing you care about is what class of armor is this dude wearing? What does his sword look like? That's a fucking video game. Pardon my language. That's a video game. There's, at that point, I think the difference between video games and well-written war scenes is the respect for violence.
That's
violence
true,
is horrifying. If anybody who has ever been through anything, I feel very grateful to have missed combat in any shape or form. I would probably not have done well. I'll leave it right there. And infinite respect, and I guess also, frankly, infinite sympathy to those who
Absolutely.
for those people who have had to experience it. But there's no fucking respawn in war.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference, I think, is if you don't have the stakes, and if you don't care about who is on both sides, then again, sure, you can do nihilism easily. That's that anime fanfic aspect. That is the Warhammer aspect. That is just kind of the talking shit after you snipe somebody in a Call of Duty online game aspect. And I don't really have any patience for that.
Right.
I don't think
serves
the same purpose, and I don't think it actually builds anything. I think it's just it's empty.
Let me jump in there real quick, because this conversation you guys are having reminds me of a movie, and I'm certain Tristan hasn't seen it yet, but you may have Schindler's List.
Yeah, of course.
In the movie Schindler's List, it was primarily black and white, but there was the little girl with the red jacket. In that red jacket, you followed it in different. It was not the girl wasn't even a main character at all. I don't think she had no speaking parts or anything. It's just you've seen that jacket progressively through the movie until you've seen the jacket piled in a pile at the end, connecting you emotionally to this young girl, but also connecting you emotionally to the violence that they were going through. It was something that you were able, seeing that, and instead of just being one scene, it was just a hammer. Every time it was just a hammer hitting you, going, "Hey, pay attention to what you're looking at here." That's what I kind of get from what you're saying there. Is you're bringing people into that battle without just overdoing the technical issues of it.
I think another movie that does that very well is one I've seen really recently, actually, and really struck me with how it was a phenomenal movie. I didn't enjoy it, but I can appreciate how good it is. I didn't enjoy it in a way that
Can I guess?
Go for it. I think you know it. Yes.
Dunkirk?
No. It came out really recently.
Oh, really recently. Okay.
I didn't enjoy it in a way that I was not intended to enjoy it, I guess, is how I can put it. The Long Walk, which was based on one of Stephen King's novellas, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Incredibly painful movie to watch. Because you're paying paying the ticket to go into a theater and watch a fascist government essentially torture and murder a bunch of teenage guys is what you're paying for, and you get it. There's a whole. I know that when they're talking to Stephen King about adapting it, one of his stipulations was you had to show the kids being shot. You could not cut away from that, and I think that really does, because you grow to get attached to these characters over this movie, because 80% of the movie is just these kids talking to each other and trying to make the time go by and trying not to, being scared about the fact they could die. That's 80% of the movie. So 80% of the movie is you getting endeared to these people, but you always know they're going to get shot in the head. And there's something truly brutal about that. And I know it was written, the original story was written around Vietnam when the draft was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that was very much in Stephen King's head during that time.
For sure, yeah.
Phenomenal movie, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so you should also go back and see Dunkirk.
Yeah,
I'll watch that one.
Seen.
Dunkirk is that is the most stressed out I think I've ever been in a theater. And, I know my World War II history. I know how this is going to end, and it's going to end okay. But they put you right up close and personal with 3 groups of people. And they're trying to last long enough for the British Navy, plus all the fishing boats they wound up having to shove off of the beach in Brighton to get to Dunkirk to try to maybe possibly evacuate enough of the British Army that the British Army will still exist after the disaster in France. And everybody's morale is already in the toilet, and everybody is getting strafed by German fighters the entire time. And it's not like what you see in the documentaries, even on the old History Channel documentaries. Yeah, the explosions are cool, and it's all from a distance. No, you're watching guys get shot by airplane machine guns, and they're just standing on a beach with no cover, and they have nothing. Like, there's no way to get away from it. Yeah, and you're just, where are the boats? Yeah. Where are the boats? Hurry up and get here. Isn't that
the one that was shot in like one consecutive camera shot? Correct.
That's 1917, which was
my bad.
No, different type of stressful. Equally phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely, another one that's really, really, and another one where it's very powerful and personal.
Right.
In terms of what you get from it, and in terms of what you.
So I had that. This was not really wasn't not at all an action movie about war, but Oppenheimer. And what you said, something you said there, you of course you know the history, so you know it's going to turn out okay. But when you really get into a personal level, when you're looking at armies, this army wins, this army loses, and this army won, so it's okay. But when you get down to a personal level of an individual soldier or warrior, it didn't turn out okay. Even though that army may have won, you're now seeing this isn't okay, and no matter what happens, these individual stories don't turn out okay. And that's where I seen in Oppenheimer at the end, when they're all celebrating because the war is ending because of the bombs, and Oppenheimer, was it Cillian Murphy?
Cillian Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, there was no words. You just seen it. You seen the horror in his eyes of what I've done. I in one hand, ended a war, but at the same time, so that individual feeling that you get. Now, that's the powerful parts of a book, and those are the parts you remember. You don't necessarily remember the color of armor, things like that. It's those scenes. There's a movie. I was listening to a podcast, and it was about a movie or a series that's out, and it seems like it was. What is the one? There was one, Primeval. It's about when they were colonizing the United States and the natives. Anyways, there's a scene where, the star was telling they said go, and these two were fighting, and they're kind of playing off of one another. And at the end, he's attacking and, in kind of a furious way, almost kind of, like an animal. And he said, when they said cut, everybody was frozen. They're like, what just happened? What did we just see? It was so powerful. So those are the things I think that's important to get into a book, that you can touch someone with that. And whether it's anger or fear or anything, when you look at it and you set it down, you're like, you've experienced it. That's pretty cool. And I think that's kind of where I'm, everything I'm reading about what you got, that's similar to what you're doing.
I'm crossing my fingers that ends up being the case.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read it, though.
A little more on the other side of this, though. You're a history buff, and you built this story on a world that doesn't exist necessarily other than in your book.
Sure.
How close, and no magic and things like that. So how closely does it fit with our reality? Is the armor the same?
Close.
Swords very similar. Yeah. So
I
something you can relate to
it's
pretty quick.
Close. I think I tried to amalgamate culturally a whole bunch of different aspects of different, warrior cultures from similar times.
Okay.
There is probably, it is strongly, geographically, it's pretty similar to the Middle East, time frame wise, in terms of the technology. It'll be pretty similar to the end of the ancient period. But is there some Viking influence, which would have been a couple hundred years later? Sure. Is there maybe a little bit of samurai culture, just in terms of the fact that almost every warrior culture has sort of a few priorities that sort of look a little similar? Might you get some of that from the hand-to-hand combat? Maybe. Is there a decent amount of kind of almost a Mongol or Magyar vibe going from some of the horsemen? Sure, because there has to be. It's mashed together to make, something new that will still feel familiar enough. And beyond that, mostly I want the reader to be able to fill in their own blanks. I'm not spending much time talking about how people look. This is about what they're thinking, how they're operating, what the culture acts like, what the politics and the tactics. I want to spend time on that stuff. That's the stuff that's interesting to me. I don't spend much time on the cosmetics of it. You know what I mean? So it's not supposed to be as obvious as just this is set in a world that is exactly like 7th century Middle East. There are too many other influences in there. It's just, I watch too much TV. I've read too many books.
But it's not completely it's not completely on its own. Like
for sure,
armor's made out of different metals and cyberpunk where you have mixtures.
Yeah. They're wearing chainmail because it's it's late antiquity. And chainmail is as good as they're going to get. They're, carrying swords that are slightly curved because, personally, I just kind of dug that in terms of the aesthetics. But, if it had been Viking, more like sort of straightforward Viking or Saxon blade, that would have been cool too. But the vibe is supposed to be familiar enough where you can ask, where would I have seen this before without it becoming a straight borrowing of any particular moment in time.
So playing off that, though, you're going with a sort of secondary world setting, but with no magic. And I remember reading one of your discussions on Reddit, what actually kind of got me interested in the book, is asking if it still classifies as fantasy. Now, talking about genre, genre is at the same time the least important thing in the world, or subgenre, the least important thing in the world, and hotly debated. And I could get killed for saying this, but I consider your book high fantasy, even though there is no magical elements. But if we're going to say
we'll protect you if people yell at you, I will yell back, because why not?
Nice. But I've had some incredibly divisive political takes on this podcast, and that's probably the most divisive take I've had.
Really?
But that's the most.
That's the most.
I have seen.
Do you remember? We did a little episode where it was called XYZ. I'm X, Tristan Z, and I'm asking him, why are you guys doing these things? I think that one got a little bit over that, Tristan. I
don't know. You've not read the comment sections I've read, but
no. But I've had people come up going, "Why do y'all talk about gay people so much?" It's like
I'm very liberal, and we're not in a very liberal area.
I'm not I'm not a conservative by no means, but
we are much more liberal than the area we live in.
I don't really like to.
That came through.
I don't really want that terminology. I don't like that terminology. I like to be who I am. I don't want to be kind of bound to anything like that.
There's certain things of it has been very, very frustrating to watch over the course of.
Yeah,
I think it's intentional. It's easy to control a narrative. It's easy to control a group of people when they're combative. I can make you hate Tristan easier than I can make you love Tristan, but only Tristan can make you love him like that. You know what I mean? So it's so much easier to control that.
But
slogan,
I hate that.
The death of all of us.
I agree. And our podcasts tend to get off on that quite often, where I say we have to come together as a nation, because you touched on that earlier in history. And who was it? Was it Mark Twain that said, "History may not repeat itself, but it rhymes"? And I love that quote. And I'm seeing that. And what you were talking about with your book even kind of parodies it a little bit, where you had, or I'm not sure if that's what you were talking about. Anyhow, you were saying that there was two groups that fought over a long period of time, 30 years. And then the other group comes in, when these two have weakened themselves over all this time, the other group comes in. Well, that's what the world sees, is they see a nation at odds with itself, weakening itself. And until we can figure a way out. I told someone earlier, and we'll get back onto your book, but I did say something. I said, we have to find a way to go backward. We need to backtrack this. So I'm obviously that all three of us here could have something that we would definitely disagree on. But if we're trying to figure something out, we shouldn't start there. We should keep going back. And until we get to the point of bananas are good. Well, Tristan, no. Okay, well, let's go back one more, until we find the most simple thing that we can agree on, and then start stepping forward from there. That's my take on it.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. I think it's a lot easier to,
you got to build
definitely
something.
Easier to decide that somebody, the thing that social media has done, I was a freshman in college when the Facebook first appeared on college campuses. And when it was originally just a tool for 19-year-olds to all know each other's names, so it was easier for us to fool around, that was great.
Yeah.
There was no politics on it yet, and they weren't trying to sell us anything, and they weren't trying to make us play stupid farm games. And it was just, here's who are you? Give me 15 words about who you are and what your music tastes are, and
an introduction more.
Yeah, just an introduction.
Well, I think when we're trying
with each other a little bit, and I think there was them allowing ourselves to get into a place where we rely on the comment section to decide who our people are is a nightmare.
It is.
And I think sloganeering gets us nowhere.
No.
And there is so little nuance left, which is, that's where all the uncomfortable conversations is where the good stuff actually happens, where the forward motion happens, is in the uncomfortable conversations where three very, very messy things can all be true at the same time.
I've always said there are topics out there. There is no right answer. There's only the best answer at the moment.
There's the best answer at the moment, or there's just a ton of wrong answers, and we got to figure out some, the
least wrong. Yeah.
Least wrong. Yeah.
Well, I think too we need to
get into any specifics in particular, because I will, at least I don't want to start the conversation of any specifics, but just the idea that we have. It becomes red team and blue team is
that's
infuriating, especially when both teams are being funded by the same collection of very, very rich people who have their own agenda. Very frustrating.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that just my final word on that would be we need to start from a building perspective. When you meet someone, you need to build something with them instead of starting at that tearing down spot. I'm going to tear down your beliefs, right? You're going to tear down my beliefs. I can't see that ever being constructive. And I do 100% believe that you have a divided country that needs a united country to be able to continue on. You can't continue like we are. So.
Or we can split into 7 or 8 countries.
Yeah,
my work. I don't know.
Well, like what you were saying with your
this.
book, a lot of people have. Tristan and I may have been just talking about this, where in different time periods, people have used. No, I take that back. It was it might have been another podcast I was looking at. They were showing science fiction movies or television shows like I don't know, Star Trek and Twilight Zone. And it was the Alfred Hitchcock shows, the one they were talking about, if I believe, and they were interjecting these, ideas of maybe this isn't the right direction we're going. Very controversial to the time. Maybe they were talking about women's role in the house or something, and it was 1950s, so quite a bit different. But they were. And even like with Star Trek, the original series where Kirk kissed every woman, so that's very chauvinistical. But he also kissed the green ones. He kissed, so it was very progressive in some ways like that. But they were putting that in a time when it was, it was very against. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes literature and even fiction can help make the movement go forward. Get our points across without going out and going, "You're wrong. This is right."
I think the best argument I have seen from the left in my entire life is actually a video game, being Disco Elysium. And I mean, I've met a lot of people who I agree with who are horrible at debating their points. Like, they will just say the most absurd stuff ever. But I do feel that video game makes better arguments for what it's arguing for than most actual people debating it.
Well, art in all its forms, right?
Exactly.
If it works, great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, you got different people. You have to approach different people different ways. You're not going to get everyone's attention the same way, so you have to have other mediums.
Original point, though, I wasn't trying to get so political there for a second.
Yeah, we got
to kind of derail us.
No, that's all right.
But I was saying I would classify Shieldbreaker as high fantasy by its nature. However, there'd be a lot of debate there, and even you were debating what I would classify it as. So if hypothetically we could not call it fantasy, what would you claim? What would you describe it as? Like, if it's not a fantasy story now, is it historical, even though it doesn't take place in our world? I kind of would lean towards gothic horror almost, with some of the ways you've described, with the maybe ghost, maybe I'm having a mental breakdown element of the brother.
That's pretty close. My favorite one that I've gotten so far is actually from an indie fantasy author of some serious renown, a man named Will Christopher Bear, who suggested that it is noir fantasy.
Interesting. Okay.
Noir fantasy.
I think as I get closer into it, and especially as I'm in the middle of the second book right now, and the second book is just, without giving anything away, the first book is a little bit of it's nonstop action, and the second book there's a little bit more of a hurry up and wait aspect to it, and there's a ticking time bomb that I'm not going to get into. I don't want to ruin anything for either of you.
Absolutely.
But it is about a very, very slow burn, tension building up to allow for a book and a half long explosion going into books 3 and 4.
Yeah.
I don't want to. And I'm not going to give any of the details away, except to say that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better for our boy Kareva. And I think there's a level of calling it noir where it allows for everybody to, it's seeing the world in this kind of, I mean, if they wanted to film this thing in black and white and have everybody, having everybody snarling at each other and, I guess maybe some of the dialogue, it feels like it could be noir. It is obviously, it's a dark story for sure.
Yeah.
It's an unhappy story, I would imagine, even with, in moments where hopefully I can get my, in a moment here or there where a joke lands, because you got to cut the tension every once in a while somewhere.
Oh, sure.
But I think it's about the tension more than it is about the, say, violence or about the, and so I think, if I was going to call it that, yeah, I would go probably with noir fantasy. Or just,
interesting.
My wife just says, it's just fiction. And I was like, okay, sure. I guess
once again, genre
true.
is...
That's true.
Well, let's
genre
go back.
Is just
let's
all
take
being really nerdy and wanting to classify things.
Yeah. Let's go back to let's go back to like the older stories like King Arthur. There was some magic there, but for the most part, all of the battle scenes, the armor, the castles, everything was in it, but it was not
based on a true story.
Right, it was not a true story. I don't even think it was based, if I remember right, based on an area, a real area. You know what I'm saying? On a map. I don't believe it was. I don't think
it's
Camelot was.
It's meant to be in Britain. I know. I think they have like a made up region of Britain.
Okay.
Are they Welsh? My bad.
They're supposed to be if the actual, and this is where my man Bernard Cornwell. I would read, if you ever get a chance to, his Arthur trilogy. It starts with The Winter King, and then I think the second one is Enemy of God, and then the third one is called Excalibur. And
I pick those up.
It's post-Rome, the Welsh getting invaded by the Saxons, and eventually, they're just the British at that point. They're not the Welsh yet. They end up being the Welsh because they're just end up stuck just in Wales by the end of the historical conquest. But the concept is Arthur is the king of the Britons. Arthur was the great Welsh king that was supposed to come back from the dead and give the Britons back the whole island. And that so far has not happened.
But going back to your story, so I've mentioned a fantasy writer. And I guess I could take an opposite approach, where I read all these books of like, the age of magic is done, and now the age of whatever. And I said, what if we focused on like the first age, or whatever age where the magic was at its greatest, and also so happened to be around the same time period as World War II in our world. Those two time periods met. And then once again, you have your issues. I want to write very Lord of the Rings, George R.R. Martin style magic, Les Sanderson style magic, but it's harder to do that when it's right there in the forefront. But what inspires you to go, what if I didn't have magic? Because I feel like that's almost like at this point in the fantasy genre, that's a deliberate choice. Because normally when someone writes fantasy, the magic is just kind of baked into it subconsciously at that point.
Before you answer that, I want to say I think it's refreshing. I love
agree.
magic. I love the magic, but I don't know that I can really pinpoint a story like that.
I can think of.
I'm sure there are.
Two.
I'm sure there are.
No,
but
two, maybe.
Yeah, to hear it from that perspective, it gives you freedom. You can't go back in history. It's been done a few times, like the Inglourious Bastards. They kind of rewrote it, and it doesn't feel right.
They did rewrite that history, didn't they?
Yeah,
ever so slightly.
It's just barely a little swerve to the left there. And there's some others like that, and it never feels right. It's even the Walking Dead. It was based, I think, in the late 90s or in the 90s. And it doesn't feel when I think of that, it throws me off. So you can't really go back and change history and feel for me. So being able to just say, no, this isn't a part of history. It's influenced by history. It's influenced. Yeah.
Yeah. The alternate history of sorts. That was definitely a nice piece of it.
So I think Tristan's question was why you decided to do that.
Why do I say no magic is actually really easy. Because when there's magic, it's too easy to say, and then they fixed it.
A wizard did it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A wizard did it. Look to my coming on the fifth day. Look to my coming on the fifth day, man. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess all we have to do is survive the next 4 days, and then everything's going to be all right. No shade on Tolkien. It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
But so many people without that level of talent and skill and dedication making a sloppy mess of it and just turning these really lazy Deus Ex Machina into their endings. And it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, they don't have a solution, so they just make a spell for it.
Yeah, I wanted to... And again, it's about... There's a scene... I wanted it to be a human drama. I wanted it to be about people striving against other people and they're all kind of badasses, and they all have skin in the game, and they're all going to have to make some really, really rough choices at some point or another, based on what they believe and what their values are and what their priorities are at that moment. But the other thing is, like I said at the very, very beginning, the best villains I ever came across are great human villains.
Absolutely.
There's a scene in a prequel to the Shieldbreaker that is up on Substack called The Daughters of Vay. It covers basically the rebellion that sets this whole thing in motion, that ends up with Kareva's older brother dead, and Kareva all of a sudden slated to take charge, and his father weakened to a point of everybody's in crisis now. And at a certain point, that battle is taking place, and I cut to a civilian whose home has just been broken into by one of the Daughters of Vay to use it as a vantage point for ambush. And it's a mother and her daughter, and at a certain point, there's an ambush taking place in an alley, and the mother looks out the window, and there's a lot of bodies there, and the daughter pops her head up and says, "What is it, Mama? Is it monsters?" And the mother holds her daughter close and says, "Of course not, love. No such thing as monsters."
Yeah, that's cool.
I was like, I just want, I want to explore how fucked up people can get.
Absolutely.
Without making it a full-on morality play. I do want this to be, we do terrible things to each other.
Unfortunately,
as a species, we do terrible things to each other. It's not supposed to. This is not a judgment call. I'm not trying to say one type of thing is better than another type of thing. I'm just thinking about the causes of that, and I'm thinking about the cost of that.
Right.
And
exploring the morality without making a definite statement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We live in messy times. I want to ask some questions and let people think about the answers for themselves.
Absolutely.
That brings up a question that I have that it's not in my notes. The morality question, and more so the religion. Are there any kind of religious aspects in your
in your
books? Like, and is it based on something here or its own religion to get all together?
There is. You guys ready for a fun one? This is where the comments section. This is where the comments section.
I'm already ready for a party. Let's go.
I'm excited.
Break out the bourbon.
Me, organized religion and I do not get along.
Yeah, I get that.
Organized religion and I are not on each other's Christmas list. Let's just say. You
can imagine the area we're in. We're in the actual
Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Concerning,
I drive by
some people.
And we have some
I drive by a Hell's Real sign every day, so
I have
only
some
interesting
different ideas as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for there is absolutely a religious angle, and it's mostly, and I'm not talking about faith. I want to be very, very clear that I do not have any particular thing against someone believing in a god or many gods, if that is where they want to be. But I think it's personal, and I think as soon as you organize it and politicize it and monetize it, then it's a corporation, and it's out here trying to kill us just like everything else.
Yeah.
So for me, a gigantic part of the reason why the Romans and the Persians spent that 40 years killing each other, two different interpretations of monotheism.
Agreed.
Early Christianity versus Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
So I've actually never heard of Zoroastrianism.
Zoroastrianism is like, it's a very straightforward, good behavior heaven, bad behavior hell sort of vibe. I think it was like the first one with like that simple a consequence. And I don't even necessarily know what the deity aspect of it. It might have just been this dude Zoroaster, but I do not
so that's what differentiated is from Christianity.
But I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. So, but
I'm gonna look into that. Sounds really interesting.
In comparison to say the Judeo-Christian Islam, the big three of the one God or Allah, and either the Son Jesus, or if Muhammad is to be believed, just another one of the prophets. Jesus, and then him being the third and final prophet, however you want to interpret it, versus this other one. Really, in my version of the world, a lot of people spend a lot of time killing each other over which version of the one true God is the one true God.
Yeah, I'd say war is.
And
I mean, yeah,
that seems true to life.
Yeah. Well,
there's also a bunch of, and this is again farther down the road. I think, we'll explore it more as I'll explore it more as more of the series is released, obviously. But sure. I would not expect myself to, if I know me as well as I do, I would not expect myself to get kinder towards organized religion as the book gets further, as the story goes further and further along.
Well, before you get in that, Tristan, let me give you a little story that you could maybe interject somewhere, because where we're from, very Bible Belt, and if you want to talk about religious persecution, if you don't believe mainstream, there is, they want to put the Ten Commandments in the schools, and I'm not necessarily pro. I'm not saying I believe Ten Commandments or not, but I don't believe they go into schools because you have multiple different races and multiple different religions there. That is not what freedom of religion was meant for.
Yeah, unless they're going to put something from every religion,
Yeah,
then
you were talking
a
lot of
busy
work.
Wall.
Yeah, very busy wall.
It's a very busy wall.
Yes,
the wall of religion. Yeah.
Mm.
So you were talking about organized religion, and I will say this: there's good people. There's good people there. They're not all. They're not, but there are definitely people there with agendas. And from my perspective, when I was young, probably Tristan's age, I was at a church, a very, very fundamental Christian church, and I can remember they had all these people up around this altar praying. And this was a Pentecostal church, so they were trying to invoke this Holy Ghost. It would come down and go upon the people, whether you believe that or not, or whether it was just, emotion or whatever. But I remember I was standing next to this young girl who came, and she wasn't from that church. So this church, women could not wear pants. They couldn't wear makeup. They had to have long hair. Nobody watched TV. There was no music.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, no jewelry, nothing like that. It was basically... Okay. Yeah, misery. A lot of you could just look at it in her face.
Asceticism.
Yeah. So this young girl had come. This was like a revival. So she had come with friends, and she was sitting there and praying. And there is a touch that I do believe in. I do believe there's something out there that you can touch, and maybe it's a little more than our individuality is more of a wholeness of God. Whether that is real or not, I don't know. But I do believe that this young girl was touching something. She was getting somewhere. And I remember this old school preacher leaning over her shoulder and going, "Do you feel that? Do you feel that, sweetheart?" And, she's like, "Yeah, of course." And so she's feeling something very powerful here. And he says, "That's God telling you need to not wear those earrings." I'm like, how can you taint that powerful feeling that young person was getting, instead of saying that's God saying he's there for you, that's God making sure you're not alone? No, he's saying that's God condemning you for something you're doing that you wouldn't even know was a problem.
Take your earrings off.
Yeah. So that was an ego. That was an ego trip there. That was him, and I like, God doesn't, however you see God, he doesn't need that guy. He doesn't need him in the way. He can take care of it himself. So,
all powerful,
Very frustrating to see that, but it's also interesting that you're including some of that into your book as well. Kind of makes it full. How could you have war without some type of religious conflict in some ways?
And how can you have humanity without some kind of religious content?
Right.
And the second novel, as we get farther and from, I'm almost done with the second novel. I would say 90% written. As we get farther along into it, getting to see the cost of that long war on just the civilian population.
Yeah.
And how heavy a burden they are bearing because of this, and how little they have because of this, and how hard they have to struggle just to eat because of this. But there are these very, very big, fancy buildings in certain parts of town where the priests seem to have it okay.
Yeah, that seems to be the fact.
It does, from time to time, tend to, I got through, before I got too angry and couldn't keep watching it, about 40 minutes of an episode of of Danny McBride's Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, I have to say, I watched all the way through. I loved it.
Coming
from my perspective, I could see it. I could, yeah. It was.
I love Danny McBride. I love John Goodman, obviously.
Yeah.
I love, Walton Goggins is an absolute genius.
Yeah, what is it, White Lotus that he's in now?
White Lotus. Justified for me. Other side of Kentucky, but Justified is absolutely one of my all-time favorites. Getting to see him and Timothy Oliphant go eye to eye, go to eyeball to eyeball for that many years running was just a treat.
Yeah.
And with that good a cast, you said something about history not repeating itself but rhyming, and the one that I like really is history. History does repeat itself. The second time is just farce.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, we've got this weird combination of 30s fascism and 1890s Gilded Age nonsense.
Kind of do, yeah.
Wrapping themselves up into this very, very wrong, diluted, that's where you get,
a worshipping of a past that never was. This idea of, look at this good old days and completely misinterpreting. Not only misinterpreting, but
25 minutes where it was the good old days, and it wasn't the 25 minutes that some of these fellows are thinking it was.
And it was the 25 minutes for like the top 1%.
Yeah.
Well, the good old days are different for everybody. Everybody's good old days.
I mean, right now, someone's in their good old days. They're just war profiteering as well. So what's the problem?
People talking about the end of the world. I was like, well, it's the end of the world for somebody right now, every day.
Yeah. Every damn day.
When you look at it from that perspective, But
I would actually like to take a minute to talk about that exact thing.
Sure.
For anybody who is going to see this, we're at the end of October, and on November 1st, SNAP benefits end for a lot of people, or at least they're not coming out just yet. Some of them are my fellow writers, and another piece of what I've been able to do with Substack, which I want to talk about, which for me, honestly, is even more important than the writing. If this book goes somewhere and a lot of people take a look at it and a lot of people enjoy it, that's wonderful, and I'm very happy about that. But I'm one guy, and, me being slightly up or slightly down for the year based on how a book does, it's a wet fart in a crowded room. What we've been able to do, which I'm very, very proud of, is, a friend of mine in my writing community, woman, early 40s, 2 kids, liver condition that's going to be, that is going to be terminal unless there's a transplant down the road, and on SNAP benefits, and at this point, over the course of the last few days, through mutual aid, through the other piece that the other thing that I have done, while trying to sell this book on Substack, while trying to get people to pay attention to my writing on Substack, is create mutual aid for my fellow authors. And we've got enough attention on us now, thankfully, and I'm so grateful for this, that we have managed to, put together enough people who are willing to listen to us, that when we ask them to donate to a cause, and we ask them to donate $5, $10, $25 to get somebody groceries for the next couple of months, we've been able to do that. There is, I don't bring this up for me. I don't bring this up to pat myself on the back. We're not doing mutual aid because, to make ourselves feel good about ourselves. This is about making sure somebody gets to eat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if there is anything that anybody can do, no matter how small, we want to talk about the end of the world, and we want to talk about what type of person we want to be at the end of the world.
Sure.
If this is, certainly, I don't know if it's the end, but it's dicey. We're living in some messy times right now, and however the government shutdown plays out, however the AI revolution, however many jobs that takes, trying to figure out, and for me, trying to figure out how to help people decide what kind of person they want to be. For me, the thing that I want to teach my kid is, if you have a little bit more than somebody else, try and share.
Absolutely.
And
very admirable.
somebody wanted to, I don't know if I believe in God or not.
Mm-hmm.
I know I believe that you should just try and be a decent human being just for the sake of being a decent human being.
Mm-hmm. And that's not hard to know.
I'm very grateful to be able to be in a position where I can, spend 2 hours talking to you, lovely gentlemen, and spend 2 hours in comfortable chair,
sure,
comfortable digs, talking about fantasy, talking about politics,
and I'm sure all three of us had something to eat today already.
We didn't even get into sports. You're gonna have to have me back on so we can talk about
absolutely.
For sure, yeah.
I have some really, really incendiary things to say about college football too.
Right. Okay.
We'll all argue about everything, but the thing that I want, if I have a legacy, the thing that I want is to figure out a way to help people care about people, remind people to care about people.
Right.
And if it's just my characters, that's only, a tiny little drop of the iceberg. But the idea of, if you get to know somebody enough that you care about them, and enough that you are sad when they die.
Yes.
That's something. And if we take a little bit back, we take a little bit, put a little bit more of that into walking around day to day.
Sure.
That would be, for me, that's a worthy cause.
Well, as you were saying that, I had four things that I wanted to comment on what you just said. One of those things is it's a shame that people will be hungry while Congress is still being paid.
Yep.
Congress still remains paid. When the government shut down, they are still paid.
Paid vacation.
And so you're looking at some of the most people that are in the best position to be able to weather a storm are the ones that do not weather the storm. It's the ones that aren't. The other thing I wanted to say is it's easy to be a decent human being. When we go to the basic facts of it, you just be a nice guy. There's not a lot of thought there. There may be a lot of differences, but we're not talking about that. We're making sure people get fed. We're making sure people are warm and,
Yeah. It should not be hard to be a decent human being.
It's not hard.
No.
And
you don't need the fear of hell for that. You just got to say, hey, makes me sad that guy isn't doing so well. I should help.
We should help. The other thing the other two things was, one thing is, it's going to be a time now where until things make a change, we're going to have to lean on one another. You're going to have to lean on your neighbor. You're going to have to make sure your neighbor's okay. You're going to have to check in on the elderly that's there that may not have the food, or the kids, the future. We got to feed the future. And are there going to be, now here's the big thing, it's like, so many people will be like, I can remember when I was younger, again, like you said, this isn't a pat on my back, but I can remember giving money to people on the corner of the street or things like that.
Sure,
and sometimes when I didn't have it, and then they're like, well, they're just going to go buy drugs or they're going to go do this. For me, when I hand it off, it's not mine no more. So they can do, I don't want to encourage that, but I do want to encourage giving, though.
Yes.
But that hierarchy of, I think, especially with this SNAP, is, well, they're just, taking advantage. Well, of course, somebody's taking advantage, everything. But that shouldn't limit us to wanting to help. If we have to give $100, just for a number, to help someone, and 20% of that's going to be used for people taking advantage, then give the 100. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. We gotta, or actually give 120, maybe give it 120.
Because that other 80 is so important.
Sure,
absolutely.
And then the other thing I wanted to say was, don't take what I would hope that you don't take what you do lightly. I've always said that books and movies and these things, I think, are one of the most important parts of humanity. It's a way of expression. It's a way of escape. It's a way of learning, teaching. And in times of trouble like this, what did you do during COVID? You wrote, you read, I read, there was comfort in that.
I learned German for no good reason.
Sure.
It's really cool.
But we found that connection through books, through movies and stories. One of my favorite things is to hear a story told. And we've gotten off on a lot of sidetracks here, and I apologize. But there's a movie called I think it was called Atlas, or it was about war. It was about, I guess, right after the war, possibly during it. The government was looking into people who had psychic abilities. I didn't read the book. I did watch the movie. It had Anthony Hopkins in it. And Anthony Hopkins was one of these people with psychic abilities, and he was trying to he didn't want to be a part of it no more, so he was on the run. And he was telling a story to a little boy that he had come in contact with, and it was the boy's dad was at a football game. There we go, sports. See, we made it.
We got it. Good.
Yeah. So and he was at that same football game, and the boy's dad had told him about it. Well, Anthony Hopkins starts into this talk about that game, and before he was done, you tunnel visioned. You felt the world kind of collapse around you, and you were tunnel visioned, and you could see the dirt. You could feel the environment that you were in, and then all of a sudden, it brought you back, and it was almost a shock. And that was such an amazing thing to be able to do. And for the boy, of course, it gave him that feeling of connection with his father. But for everyone else out here in this world that's going through hell, we're all fighting. I've got stuff going on right now that I'm trying to deal with. Giving them that escape is precious. It's food for your soul. Not to sound too Julia Roberts here, but it is food for your soul. And I appreciate that.
You need certain things to survive. You will die without food, water, adequate shelter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at some point,
to live.
You need things. You need a reason to be here.
If
everything is so miserable, at some point you're just going to give up and say, "Why do I continue to survive if all that's tomorrow is more pain to survive?"
Yeah. And also, these stories give us a means to see that there's not the position where we're at right now is not the end. Where we're at right now. So.
But you mentioned, that using your story to kind of not necessarily teach people empathy, but kind of to help instill that, help people see the others as people as well. I remember I had someone come in one day, and I was talking to them back when I work, and they're talking about the situation with Gaza and Israel. No, it was Israel and. Was it what was the country at the time? My geopolitics are a little bit rusty. I can't remember. Was it Iran that had the conflict with Israel really recently?
Recently? That was
it wasn't.
It's been a bunch of them. It's been Palestine, and then there was also Lebanon, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then
we bombed some nuclear. The U.S. got involved and bombed some nuclear.
The U.S. got involved and bombed a couple of nuclear facilities.
She came in and she looks at me and goes, I think we should just nuke the whole country at this point to get ready to stop it. I'm like, but there's children there. She's like, yeah, well, there's children here.
Exactly.
And it was really bizarre to me to see someone, because I hang out in a very empathetic circle. We might make some dark jokes or whatever, but everyone I hang out with will look at someone dying and say, that was horrible. There was no need for that.
Yeah.
And to, in the wild, encounter a person who was like, yeah, I think it's absolutely fine to kill every single person over there.
Yeah.
Was very strange to me.
It is strange. And we come across that a lot in this area. But I would say this about that. Most of it's just uneducated, or they've never, and absolutely, I've often seen people, I have been in some situations through my life. I was a fighter. As Tristan knows, I did some things that for some very powerful people. And I saw things. I saw things that had happened, very violent things. And I think that a lot of times these people have never really encountered that, and so they don't really understand it. And then you got people.
It's the lack of respect for violence.
For that, exactly.
That allows you to say, yeah, sure, whatever, kill them. They'll just respond.
There's a person who may watch this and he's going to give me flack for it, but this particular person, I love him. I mean, he's a friend and a family. I have to. But he ordered a shirt, and it It was talking about people blocking the highway in protest, and it had a stick figure and a car hitting them and blood, whatever. And I can't remember what this said. It had some kind of stupid saying. And I'm like, that is
all life splatter. I think is what it was.
I don't want the people in, nobody wants to be, we got to get going. We got to work. We got life. And I know these people are trying to make a statement, but at the same time, but that gives you no right to instigate that or even laugh at something like that you're going to run through a crowd of people. Those people aren't there because they hate you. They're there because they're trying to get a point across, maybe misguided in how they're doing it, or maybe not. I don't know. But still, to make fun of that is, like you said, they don't have an awareness of it. They don't have a respect for it. Yeah. And until you're able to see that.
Until you're the pedestrian.
Yeah, the pedestrian. And I will tell you this too. My youngest son, he's a go-getter, man. He wants to be military, and I'm upstairs. I hear him downstairs. He's got some kind of battle going on. But I do want to tell. At the same time, I'm like, you have to understand that what you're doing is play, and I get it, and I understand. I did the same thing. Still to this day, I watch movies like that. But when you're in that position, the people who are being hurt and killed and the families have to deal with that's one thing. But it changes you. If you do that, you're never going to be the same. You're a different person forever. It never gets out of you unless you're just a complete psychopath, but otherwise it's a change. And it's sad on every level what it does. So, and you're absolutely right in what you're saying.
My major fear, if I can say this, my biggest, deepest, darkest fear about writing this novel is that if any, I do not want to disrespect anybody who has been through that. I do not want to, as somebody, this is my main imposter syndrome fear is, you bet your ass PTSD is going to play a large part in this, if we're all these secondary and tertiary story arcs are people recovering from war wounds and people recovering from what they just saw and lived through. And I really do hope to the point of it would make me very, very sad if I didn't do that part well.
Right.
I think
it would infuriate me if I did not do that part well. I've got to make sure, that has to be done in a respectful way.
I think just from the conversation we've had and so far, I think you're going to do a good job of it because you have a passion for it, and it makes me excited to read the book. And it's when we go to briefly go back to like the Schindler's List. You don't watch Schindler's List
for a good time.
It's not enjoyable. We're not like, hey, we're gonna have a party, everybody. Let's watch. You're doing
break up the popcorn and watch The Girl in the Red Jacket. Yeah.
I tell my kids, I said, when you need to watch it because you don't ever want to forget that. You never want to forget that happened, and you need to experience the fact that people went through that. And I think when you talk about those people who have the PTSD and have been in very violent situations, this is something also that it's not something that they want to feel all the time, but it's also something they don't need to forget. And they need others to understand how serious that situation is, that you're going through and the emotions that's involved. So
there are so many people. Really cool. There are people my age and a little bit younger, and probably a bunch younger, but from 2001 to 2021, there's a whole generation of people my age and slightly younger and slightly older that, we're out there, either being used as target practice or taking target practice, 20 years uninterrupted.
Yeah.
In scenarios where they couldn't necessarily see who it was that was, that was the threat, and that means that perhaps everyone's a threat. And that is something I feel no end. Like I said, ton of respect and also no end of sympathy for all the people that we have had to put in that position.
And the younger generations coming into this. Yeah, my generation tends to be very judgmental on, the younger generations coming into it. And now you're even seeing the millennials. My wife is a millennial. She's quite a bit younger than me. I always like to put that out there, but no, but they're they're the ones doing that. But, if you grew up in an era that they are, when I grew up, I was in the 80s and 90s. Those were great, man. Those were awesome times. I was poor as dirt. I was white trailer trash, but at the same time, everything was great. We didn't have, of course, there was always conflicts and things like that. But I think with social media, the internet getting out there, it puts so much of that in your face. And now, like you said, with AI, you don't know what to believe. You have no idea what to follow. And I can eat in the middle of the night. I'll get caught up in it 2:30 in the morning. Now, we were talking to Rich Hoffman just the other day about the asteroid 3I Atlas, and I told him, I said, I get to the point at 2:30 in the morning, I'm flipping through this. I'm like, oh God, let's go prep. We're here. They're here. So for a young person coming up in that, it's got to be extremely stressful. And I believe that anxiety is PTSD is like the future. How would you say that?
Pre-TSD.
Yeah, you're experiencing it in a similar situation. Yeah, it's almost like you're
anticipatory.
Yeah, and it can be devastating. And I think that's something we all should be more mindful of. Tristan and I talked to him about doing something like that, just simple videos for, like, if someone's never worked on an airplane. My daughter suffers from some anxieties, and I know that if you had to go do this, there would be an enormous amount of anxiety just because they don't know. My son and my daughter hate surprises. If I say, hey, we're going to Disney in an hour, get your stuff, it's going to be the best day of your life. Brandon Sanderson's going to be there, and they're like, can't go.
Why didn't you tell me? Yeah.
I got to give them like weeks of advance, so knowing what's coming. So yeah, the world we live in is just constantly changing. So who knows where it's going?
Yeah,
the AI thing,
uncertainty is a big one, and everybody's afraid of uncertainty.
Yeah, this AI thing too. And Tristan was like, he's like, be careful about that. He's like, when I was talking to you about it, because I understand what you're going through. And Tristan and my daughter are big proponents of that movement. And I get it. And he's like, make sure. Yeah, like he was talking about the logo. Yeah. He's like, be careful. I'm like, I just made it on the computer program. It wasn't even that much. Be careful with those things.
I won't go as far as to be 100% against. I'm going to say there are certain pieces of it that should never. AI, when you use it to try to write a book, no. That doesn't count.
I don't see that.
If you're using it to try to solve complicated mathematical equations quickly, or if you're using it to try to problem solve on a thing that you have been working, there are ways for it to be where it replaces human creativity. It's a non-starter for me.
Well, I agree with you.
Especially since it's all borrowing from everybody else's work that's already out in the world.
Scrapes.
I think it could be a very powerful tool that could help humanity.
It's inevitable, and there's only so much utility to being full-on anti-AI because it's here. It's not going. They're not going to unplug it, and our best bet is to figure out. I think for everybody, our best bet will be to figure out a way to interact with it that is actually beneficial for humanity and actually beneficial for the planet at large. Yeah. Use it to help build better science. Great.
There was a case recently. I think it was intended for business, actually. It was a pattern recognition software, an AI of sorts. And what they found is, I think it was for actually cereal logos or something like that to help recognize something. It was really no, it was for a bakery to help say, oh, this is a croissant, this is this is how much it is. Really good at actually recognizing a form of cancer, way better than anything else we have.
Right.
So that's an example of where I think that's an amazing use of AI. That this is
it is.
I think it's
tool,
weird.
You don't need it to write smut.
Exactly.
We do.
Well, I don't know. I guess there's not a lot of creativity in smut. So
no.
The thing I'm seeing.
I know a couple of authors I know a couple of authors who are writing erotica right now that will truly knock your damn socks off.
All right.
Credit where it's due. If you can write well.
DM those because I want to check them out.
There's it is a fantasy series. It's a fantasy alternate history series that is like smut, kind of. It's a Kushiel's Dart. And I've heard it's not only is it just like, it's a phenomenal exploration of humanity while also being a very like, ooh, look at his abs dirty kind of book, which is really interesting.
Here's my take on this whole thing. It can be used as a tool. I have to admit, I use it to take notes because I'm old. I forget. I'll have a good idea or something and I want to remember it. I'll have it, put it on a list. In my opinion, that's a tool. Now, I don't think that, there are going to be, I've heard songs, I've seen books, I've seen little stories written by it. It goes back to the religious thing we were talking about. I truly believe in my personal, this is just me, that we could call it God, but there's a connection. And Tristan, we're connected as human beings, and that connection is lost. I can't feel anything that I read or hear or see. I don't feel it, and I think that's common. I think that's common. You see people.
It's dull.
It's like that, and they can't. AI can't create anything new. Like what you've created is pretty unique and genuine. And without your sense, without the person you're there, that connection, you couldn't do that. All AI is going to do is reach out. It may now grab some of your stuff and some of the others, but it's not going to have that connection. I just can't believe that it's ever going to do that.
I could hop on ChatGPT right now, and I could have it write me a fantasy story, and it would entertain me for all of maybe 15 minutes if I'm being really generous. Yeah. And the only way it would entertain me is if I'm giving it the ideas. I'm saying, hey, make this about this and this. Yeah. Basically, it's
like a 3D printer. You can 3D print, but people still want something handmade. When you walk into somebody's house and you see a piece of furniture over there, you're like, oh yeah, I had that 3D printed. Well, no. But if you walk into my grandfather made that, or this particular person made this, the flaws. I used to tell my wife she would do cakes. And they wouldn't be perfect. I said, they don't want perfect. They don't want perfect. They want it nice, of course, but they want to see that somebody human made that. So I think that we'll always have that need for human connection through also, what they give us,
Like with this podcast, for example, we could basically talk to you, crack open the entire process of what got you into writing this book and these themes and why you did this and why you chose not to have magic and why you did this, this, and this.
Oh, that's why I write about everything I said. Oh, yeah. Just by the way.
Oh, fair enough. to avoid that, yeah.
Right.
If we brought an AI on, however, and we said, AI, why did you write this? He'd be like, prompt told me to. There's nothing there. Yeah. It's...
Right. I don't think we have
too much. 133 did it, and I copied that to put it in here.
The further we go down that road, and I do know people are losing their jobs currently because of AI, but I don't see it. I don't see it pushing it out completely. There's going to be the need for connection. I could not read your book if it was written by AI and connect with it in any way. I know that for sure. So, well, I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Just so you know. You have 5 minutes till 4. We're not trying to kick you off by any means. I just remember
I have a hard out at 4 o'clock.
Okay, well let's wrap it up real quickly. Dan, I'm sorry, I could go on forever.
Please, honestly, if you guys want to have me back on for round 2,
100%.
I enjoyed the hell out of this. We had a great time.
Well, let us get the book and read it, and then let's get you back because then I'll be ready for it. Yeah. And I've got lots of questions. Sorry to take up so much of your time today. I really appreciate it.
No apologies for it. Thank you so much for having me on. I had so much fun.
It was awesome.
And we got off on a lot.
Real quick,
I have I have a question. It's going to bastardize every theme of your book because it's a super I like video game hack and slash video game kind of nerd question.
Let's go, boy. Let's get it.
Okay, so there's a big subculture on the internet of who would win in a fight. Like between like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings and Captain America.
Okay.
And I, as ever since been in middle school, I've loved that for some reason. I'm the right kind of autism. If you had one of your characters in a who would win fight, who would it be and who would they fight? I ask every author we have on that.
Who would it be and who would they fight?
Yeah, and who would win if you...
All right. Well, I'm going to go with my first sword. Kareva's mentor and basically bodyguard and chief protector. His name is Alakutz. He is a half-foreign bastard who still managed to rise to the very, very top of this tribe's political chain simply by being an absolutely terrifying badass with a sword or two.
Hey, respect, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would put him up against pretty much any human being that you could put him up against, and I would put money on him.
I think you've known Logan Nine Fingers.
Miyamoto Musashi.
Okay, yeah,
Hey,
no, that would be
a hell of a fight, right?
So Nine Fingers is the one who.
Oh yeah.
I know enough about the first law. He is the one who's like the. It's like a split personality sort of vibe.
Debatably schizophrenic, debatably possessed. So kind of even has thematic connection to your story.
Debatably possessed. Definitely more rage fueled.
Very much barbarian.
The entire point of Alakutz is that he is the angriest man you've ever seen, and he's learned to control it perfectly.
Because Logan doesn't have perfect control.
Calmest, zen, and then still fast and vicious as hell.
Use it for fuel, not for overcoming you.
As from training many fighters over the years, controlling your anger is key.
He has taught Kareva pretty much everything he knows, and Kareva is very, very, very scary with a weapon. But Kareva will say, I believe in a late chapter, at some point, Kareva talking to one of the enemy asks, "Are you as good as he is?" And Kareva smirks and says, "Nobody's as good as he is."
I like that. That's good.
That's the two. That's their relationship, and that's also, If I had to put him up against anybody, I would give him my bet.
Awesome.
I'm definitely gonna read this. This sounds so much fun.
Definitely. Tom, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You very much.
We're looking forward to your book. We're going to
had a blast.
Definitely get back together after reading it. The Shieldbreaker. So everybody out there, take a look at that. We'll make sure Tristan, we put all the notes in for the people that we quoted, and let's put a little something in there for watching out for your neighbors. It's going to be a very, very stressful time coming into the holidays.
Yeah, I'm going to send, if you all don't mind, I'm going to send you the link to this mutual aid work that we are putting up right now. It actually does, for donors of $75 or more, there will actually be a 3D printed statuette for a thank you gift.
I want to get mine.
That's cool.
Our friend refers to herself as 5 ducks in a trench coat.
Cool.
Okay. And so we're going to have a little 3D statuette of 5 ducks.
How much was it for that again?
75.
75 or more.
75.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything from $5 on, we'll give you. We'll give you the first. Any little bit helps.
Sure, we're gonna get some help. We're gonna get some help on that. So thanks. Tell everybody in New York we said hi in Chicago.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you soon. And Tristan will get all this information, YouTube and Spotify to you soon.
Yeah, and let's keep talking.
Absolutely. Very soon. Yeah. Thanks again.
Bye, guys.
Have a good